Welcome to the Make Life Your Bitch podcast. I'm your host, Brittany Alicia. Greatness is a decision and your birthright. You deserve to love the woman looking back at you in the mirror. This show is for the purpose-driven female entrepreneur who is committed to only counting the time she gets back up. The woman who is ready to ignite the flame within, find her voice, and use the power of her story to transform the lives of those around her. This is your weekly fuel to inspire you to action, where I'll be sharing inspirational stories, real talks with thought leaders and successful entrepreneurs from around the world, and provide you with actionable success strategies for creating a business you love. I'm a content marketing coach, and I'm committed to helping you as an online creator and entrepreneur wherever you are to turn your dreams into a reality, to help you transform your messaging so you can create a genuine connection with your audience and grow your income online. You are far more powerful and stronger than you will ever imagine. We are the warriors. You were born for this. Let's make life your bitch. Hello. Welcome to the Make Life Your Bitch podcast. I am your host, Brittany Alicia, and I have Alyssa Knapp with me here today. She is an integrative coach and mentor. She is the creator of Integrative Wellness Journeys. She's been a coach for 15 years, and she has been on her human design journey for 2 years, since 2021. And I'm excited to have Alyssa on here today. Her and I have been connected for a little while, going back and forth, trying to make this episode happen. And this is the episode for human design, and we're going to talk all about manifestors today. So if you're a manifestor, you have one in your life, this one's for you. So welcome, Alyssa. I would love to hear from you. How did you get started in all of your business, and what led to human design coming into your world?
So how I started my business is actually very in alignment with my design, even though I didn't realize my design until several years after starting my business. So I was working in corporate. I have a health and wellness background. So I have an undergrad in psychology, health promotion and exercise. My master's is in kinesiology. And then I worked in corporate wellness doing clinical health coaching for 5 years before I started my business. And I've always been an entrepreneur. Ever since I was a kid, I would either wash cars or babysit, or I remember, I'll never forget going house to house, selling random knickknacks that I found, just always trying to make money and had all these ideas. I was that kid that wanted to be 5 things when they grew up. I wanted to be a vet and a lawyer and an actress, all of this random stuff. So, and then when I was going through school, I also was working as a personal trainer and group exercise instructor and things like that. So I always had my hands in multiple pots. I was always that person who had 5 different jobs at a time. And I never really wanted to just do one particular thing because I always had so many different interests and I always loved everything that I did. So it's actually really funny because when I first learned my human design, which was actually before 2021, when I had my first reading, which was when I really started embodying my design, I had looked it up because I was interested, because who doesn't love a quiz about themselves, right? Who doesn't love popping their information in, looking at their horoscope or whatever, and seeing something about yourself. So I'll never forget, I went down into my office, I dug out my birth certificate and my husband's birth certificate, and I was so curious to know what our human designs were. And I was really disappointed when I read that my husband was a manifesting generator and I was just a manifestor. That was what I was thinking to myself.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people first see when they see their chart and they hear about other people's charts and they're like, oh, mine's no good. And I love, I hear a lot of women say, they're like, no chart is better than the other. It is perfectly you. It's authentically you. The most important thing is that we actually, like you said, embody our chart in order to really shine. And then your chart's the best chart.
It so is. And what's really interesting to me, I've noticed this before, where I'll try to say, oh, you must be a projector, you must be a generator, or this and that. I'm almost always wrong, because what you see in others is their conditioning. Mm-hmm. You don't actually see who they are in that. You see who they think they are. So when I read that I was a manifestor, my husband was a manifesting generator, I was like, but I'm pretty sure I'm a manifesting generator. Like this has to be wrong because I am such a doer, such an overachiever, such a perfectionist, such, I am the one who cranks projects out like it's nobody's business. So I'm like, I had to like, this is great. Like this has to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Multiple interests, all of this energy. And then it's funny too, right? Because you only really get what you're ready for when you're ready for it. So that was my little like intro to it, reading that and being like, okay, yeah, I'm a manifestor. Like I make shit happen. But what about this generator aspect? Like, it didn't really make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I did get my human design reading in 2021, so it was actually kind of similar to what you had described that you do in your, at least in your last program, where you had somebody come on and do the readings for others. I was in a spiritual business mastermind, and that mentor had a human design reader give readings to her mastermind people, which is how I got my first reading. I
Mm-hmm.
can't say if I ever would have sought it out or when that would have happened if it was just so divinely aligned and such a perfect timing. I was ready to hear this information and again ready to embody it. So
And
it was
And
yeah.
like you and I were talking about, like I mentioned it right before we hopped on, and I've said it in every episode, you know, like, and I just want to say, because you had kind of mentioned this, and I caught it when you said it, is that so many people, they go and they take the quiz and they're like, you ask them like what they are, and they're like, I'm a manifestor. And you can tell that they're like just starting out, because it's like, oh, honey, there's so much more to it than that, and it's like, you should never, if you are not like, even if you are a human design reader, you should not try and decipher your chart on your own. Like, it's been so interesting as I've been recording this series of people who have looked at my chart, and everyone like picks out something different. And it's not that someone sees something like that, it's like, one person will see something and then I maybe mention it to another person. They're like, oh, I missed that. Like, that's so interesting. And I think when we can actually have someone decipher our chart for us, it makes a huge difference. And it really gives you, human design really gives you that validation that you're on the right track. It's not here to fix you. It's to give you that validation that all that shit that you've been doing in your business, because you see all the generators, like these like go-getters, like go, 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 go. And you think that you need to be like a doer and on the move. When you like actually see your chart and you're told like, and that I'm a projector, right? So I've like, as you're saying, like the thing with manifestors, like I get it because I struggled with it too. And I still do, where, it's like, you're supposed to only work for 2 to 4 hours. And I'm like, what? Like, no, like, I have so much shit that I need to do. And you want me to go take a break halfway through here and do what?
Right. And what's interesting about that with projectors too is that it's that 2 to 4 hours of work. It isn't just your work. It's 2 to 4 hours of things that drain your energy, that take a lot of your energy. So I remember there's one projector that she's a colleague of mine. She's a therapist, and we collaborated on a project. And she was like, I didn't know her design at the time. And she's like cranking stuff out. Like she's writing all these posts for us for this event that we were doing and this. And I'm like, I kept saying to her, I'm like, I can't wait to see your chart. I can't wait to see your chart. I was so expecting generator. She was also a projector. And I was like, whoa. But what she was doing was lighting her up so much, it wasn't draining. So I think it's really important, right, for projectors or for any of us to really know that when there is that passion, that desire behind it, like depending on where that motor center is, depending on where that energy is coming from, you can do more. And that's also why none of these labels should limit us in any way or do limit us in any way. So just because you're a projector doesn't mean you can only work this amount of hours, or just because I'm a manifestor doesn't mean that I can finish a project. It might be really hard. I might struggle and need an extra cup of coffee to do it, but it really is interesting because like you said in the very beginning, none of it is right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. And having that awareness around what that is, around what your type is and what your strategy is, and all of that stuff. It's energetics. It's how your aura and how your energy system is operating with the world around you. So like you mentioned in, the intro, I'm an energy healer is one of the things that I do, one of the many things that I do. And so it was really interesting to me. For me, human design is it's like everything that I know and have studied coming together in one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's the quantum physics aspect of it, the energy aspect of it, the mindset aspect of it, of how it affects the way that you're thinking and the way that you're perceiving things, as well as how you're able to ground, or if you're able to ground. And I tend to work with a lot of people who have ADD, ADHD, again, that like overactive mind and brain and things like that. So understanding, and I know you're going to have a whole series on the centers, but that understanding that, whoa, when you are open up here in those places, you actually really do have to learn how to ground that energy and how to work with it. And it's really interesting because we all have, based on our type, right? We have our strategy. That's right. What our type tells us is what our strategy is and what our themes are when we're in alignment, when we're out of alignment. So the manifestor type, this was really interesting that when I learned this, we are the only type whose the word always eludes me. But the only one whose strategy doesn't come natural is us. So our strategy is to inform and initiate, but it's actually really hard for us to be able to see that and to do that. So that is one of the biggest lessons that I have embodied as a manifestor, is to inform more, to inform as much as possible, talking out loud to myself, talking to the universe, as a mom, informing my kids, informing my husband, informing. And from a business perspective, as ideas and things come in, informing them to my audience. That has been really huge and really powerful. Actually, one of my most successful launches is one that I really just allowed my human design to guide me through the entire time from start to finish. A mastermind that I launched in January called Reiki Like a Boss Business Mastermind. I'd never done a mastermind, never done my own mastermind before. This had been an idea that was really just sort of simmering for a couple of years. And all of a sudden it was just like, I have a sacral or splenic authority. So my authority comes in and it's like, all right, now bitch, do it now. Like, so I just started talking about it. I didn't have a landing page. I didn't have a call set up. I didn't have marketing. I didn't have anything ready, but it was just like, no, this is time. Like, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And the women came in, they just came in. It was really, really amazing and really beautiful, because as a manifestor, our throat center is so powerful. Our aura amplifies the energy that comes out of our throat, what we speak, as well as our actions, which is why it's really powerful for us to interact and be involved with all of the other types. Because when we do this, when we really allow whatever is coming through us to come through us, we are catalyzing change in so many other people. This was another really interesting thing. Once I started learning more and really diving deeper into the human design and really what it meant, it made so much sense as to why every single networking call, because I'm a very social person. I love networking. Like, if networking could be my full-time job, it totally would be. Because I just love talking to people and hearing about their visions and hearing about their businesses. And I mean, you do too, right? Like, it's, you just love to talk about it. You could talk about it all day long. So I'd be on these networking calls and it would end up being like almost like a coaching session, just like pulling out all of these ideas from these people, and they leave so lit up. And I never really got it. I'm like, yeah, like, people have always told me when I walk into a room, they can feel me and I have this energy and blah, 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 all this stuff. I just thought it was because I'm a Leo. I'm like, yeah, okay. And so it was really interesting. I'm like, oh, because I'm a sacred fire starter, because I literally am here to initiate those ideas and to give others something to respond to, right? Because that's what the majority of population is, are generators, manifesting generators. They're again, that word again, their strategy is to respond, and for projectors, right, to wait for the invitation.
Which is brutal because you go to, like, I go to a networking event and, like, I mean, in my business, it's all about launches. Like, and for me, like, I want to help people get visible. And my superpower is that I love to sit down and riff with people on like business ideas. And it's like, I have this idea but I don't know how to create my product suite, and I don't know how to like bring this into everything. I'm just like, step into my office, like, let's have a conversation.
right.
And for me, like, not being allowed, and it's not that I'm not allowed, but like pretty much like, not being allowed to just like, and having to like bite your tongue when someone's talking about their business and you're like, I know that I could help you. But like, I know that if I put myself out there in that sense, like, people are like, fuck off. Like, I don't care what you have to say. And it's not worth the energy. But like,
right.
as projectors, like, it can be so frustrating for us because it's like, I know that I can help you.
Right, right. And I think for projectors, because of that, it's so helpful to be really tapped into your intuition, to also understand when the invitation is there without the words, because you can energetically receive that invitation. And you could also, right, as you know, you're a visibility coach, right? Having like creating those ways to almost like, here's the invitation to give to me, right?
Yeah.
Like, here, this is, if you want to invite me in to do this, like, here is how you can do it, right? And then that is also giving somebody something to respond to.
And I think that's part of it. It's like figuring out how to word it in a way. And, you were talking about your, how you had worked with someone who was a projector and doing something that lights them up. And sometimes if you have someone creating your content for you who is a projector and you're not aware of who your team is, like, the energy that they're putting into it could possibly be what's repelling people. So it's important to be aware of your team and the energy that they're bringing in. And, I said it before we jumped on the call, and I've said it a million times, like, throughout this, and I'm going to continue to say it. So important. Like, human design is a now thing. Like, if you are struggling in your business and you're spinning your wheels and you're trying everybody else's way of doing things, and you're like, and there's a struggle there, it's because you are out of alignment. Like, you are operating from someone else's design. Like you said, people aren't like being themselves. They're utilizing some other design because they think, well, this person, and even if they have the same niche as you, right? Like, you could have the exact same niche as someone and they could be pumping out content and doing things their way, and they're like massively successful, multiple seven figures. And you're over here, you're being like, well, that's working for that person, so I should be like that, but like totally different designs. It's like, it's not going to work for you. Like, people are being repelled by you. And, I just was thinking as we were sharing, I don't even think we gave like a rundown of like what a manifestor is. So like, let's like back up the bus. Like, let's just give a quick rundown as to like, if you want to just like quickly explain, like, what is a manifestor? And what is their superpower?
So a manifestor has a direct channel to the throat center. So we have that energy. So our throat center is the manifestation center. So essentially, we have our head center and the root center as pressure centers. So there's energy coming in, and everything else, all the centers in the body, all the channels, everything is trying to leave through the throat. So we have this like fast track to create. So that is why manifestors do create at the quickest pace. That's why, like they say, a manifestor urge will outdo any generator's sacral center. Even though we don't have a consistent flow of energy, when there is that alignment behind that action, it happens fucking fast. And what our superpower is really to initiate. Like, I think I used the phrase before, the sacred fire starter. So we are the ones when we are in alignment and when we are really following our strategy and our authority, what we share, whether that's a thought, an idea, maybe a challenge or a struggle, especially if you're a 3 line, whatever that thing is, even if it's just like, oh, I'm going to the grocery store now, just literally informing, like whatever is coming out is activating everybody else around you. Like it's really, really incredible. However, and this was something I was like, wait, I have a closed and repelling aura. Like, are you sure about that? I'm pretty sure I'm pretty approachable and nice. But that is the typical definition of a manifestor's aura, closed and repelling. I mean, it doesn't sound very attractive, but it is. And it's that way because we are designed to be very independent. That I definitely relate to on a conscious level, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the close and repelling is because we like what's interesting is that we're not meant to ask for outside opinions on certain things. Now, I know that might sound like, oh, you know everything or this or that or whatever, but actually that is conditioning, right? If we, like thinking that somebody else has the answer, thinking that there's more that I need to know before I do this. Even like human design, for example. I'm like, I've only been learning about this stuff for so long. I'm also a 5-1, so I research the shit out of anything that interests me, like to a T. So, and I've been living it and I've been talking about it, and all of my clients, I dig into all of this stuff. But for a while, there was the conditioning of like, do I know enough to talk about this? Am I qualified to talk about this? Like, am I even, like the right person to be sharing about this? But the answer is yes, because I feel it in my body, because I get that splenic response, because I taught a human design class to my mastermind on Monday, because human design is obviously something we integrate, because once you know, you can't unknow. You're like, once you know what a powerful tool this is, yeah, I'm like, everybody, you got to know.
It's like I said that to my clients about quantum physics. I'm like, once you learn about like the 3, 4, 5D, like you can't unknow this. And then now you have to take responsibility for your manifestations and your energies. So are you willing to dive in there? Right? Like I did a podcast episode on the 5D. And like, I mean, I said to my clients, I'm like, once you know this, like you are taking full control of your energy and understanding it. And when you aren't manifesting things, that is that's on you. That's you needing to learn how to like release that energy. And like with manifestors, and I mean, I think this pisses a lot of people off, is that you are known to manifest quickly, right? And it's like you're about collapsing time. And you hear so many people talking about collapsing time. And it's like, no, you are the true people that collapse time.
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting too, because again, bringing in conditioning, that is something that others see in me that I don't easily see in myself.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because when we look at our human design charts, we have our conscious side and we have our unconscious side, right? We have our design, which is, who we are, and then we have the personality, which is who we think we are on a conscious level or mental level. So that is something that others, they're like, oh my God, you did what? Like you've done this and that, like, people are like, oh my God, you're so accomplished. You've done this or that. And I'm like, really? Because I do not think like I've done enough. So it's really, really funny and really helpful, right, to have that reflection. I love what you said before about how we always should have somebody else looking at our design or looking at our charts or whatever. And this is why it's always so helpful to have like coaches and mentors and things like that, because we really can only see what our ego will allow us to see. And by learning about my design and everything, it really allowed me to see those parts of myself that I couldn't really see before. And it also gave me permission to rest. Because one thing that's interesting, I know as a projector, you're going to relate to this, but for manifestors, we go through cycles. We go through cycles of urges and rest. Urges and rest. That might be hours, it might be weeks of like, you have this urge, you just go until you're done. but it's a very conscious effort to recognize when you're still going because it's not finished versus are you still going because you still have that drive to do it, that internal drive to do it. So having the awareness of how much energy you really have and why you're continuing to move forward with it is so, so important, because I have still struggle with burnout. I mean, it's a little different now because the kids do not help.
Right.
Right. But before kids,
And I have a
right?
generator. Both my boyfriend and I are projectors, and our kid's a generator. So she's
Oh
like
my
on the go all the time.
That is so funny. That is so funny. Yeah, I am a manifester and I have a household of manifesting generators. So my husband and both of my kids are manifesting generators, and they tire me the fuck out. They really, really, really do. And also on that same note, because, and I'd be curious if this is for you. And I know your daughter's probably not really talking yet. She's still really little, right?
She's 9 months. Yeah.
9 months. Yeah. So conversations have yet to come, but we are not meant to respond.
Mm-hmm.
Like especially as a manifester, I'm not meant to respond. So having children, especially manifesting generator children, I am forced to respond all day, every day. And that really exhausts me. So recognizing that, and I can't not respond to my children's needs. That's kind of illegal, right? Or the kind of mom that I want to be, but recognizing that and being aware of it and providing myself with enough space is so important for me to be successful in my business. When I had my second son, Charlie, I did a whole kind of pivot in my business. I actually had launched another brand, which is still alive, which I'm not actively really doing anything with it, called The Embodied Mommy. And I launched a podcast all about like the fourth trimester. I created a program called Reiki Like a Mother, which was again very divinely came through me after I had my second son because of just that whole experience. And my big lesson through that whole thing was we need to be well and balanced in our personal lives in order for us to succeed in our businesses, in order for us to really show up in the way that we need to for our clients to succeed, for our communities to succeed, right? To really do all of that. So just recognizing that as a manifester, right, you're not meant to respond. So it's normal and natural to get a little tired out from that, but being aware of it and having the right toolbox of things that are going to help you restore is so important. And this is where actually I love bringing astrology into it, because knowing your moon sign, regardless of what your type is really helpful in understanding what different activities can be really nourishing for you. So that's just a little tip that I've learned that's been really helpful and powerful for me as a manifester. So my moon sign is a Sagittarius. So for me, thinking about travel, learning, all of that stuff is really, really restorative for me. So taking space away, reading about human design or something else is just like interesting to me is, are ways that I really restore.
Mm-hmm. And I think with that,
Mhm.
it's like the learning, someone might see that as something that's doing, but if it lights you up, for myself, and I think with my design, it says that I'm not supposed to be like that, but like, I love learning. Like if I could sit and like, take courses all the time, if I could go sit, cause when I was in university, I took like psychology and sociology. Like if I could just learn about like, the mind and like all that kind of stuff all the time, I absolutely love it. And it's really interesting with my chart. There's very much that the launch side of things. And there's also parts of my chart that I've just become aware of that speaks to why I love to talk about energy and manifestation, which was so interesting because I really struggled with how do I present myself in a way when I'm talking about the logic, the structured side of business. And that's why I had like my two programs, Abundance Codes and Wealthy Rebel. And it's why I've decided to like infuse them together. And it's so like, there's a lot of coaches out there who you see like dropping offers all the time. And for me, it's just, that is not in alignment with me anymore, and being okay with that. Like I need to operate from my design. And it really is just, connecting with what feels good for us. And, with manifestors, and projectors and that kind of thing, because we burn out, so important that, because you mentioned, if you're working on a project, like trying to take it through the finish line, even if you just take that day off, take a day off,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to like recharge yourself and be able to like even move the next day possibly, versus if you're like, if you get to that point where you just keep going and going and going, you will burn yourself out, right? And it is harder to come back from that than it is had you just taken the day off and, refresh and restored. And so I think it was a reflector that I had on here recently. Obviously you'll get the reflector episode after this, but what we were talking about was the importance of, if you are going to, like, if you know that you're overwhelmed and you have client calls, like, be okay with saying like, hey, I can't show up the best for you today. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? And I think when we can allow our human design to speak to that, and other people, like, I'm at that point where it's like, I want to bring people into my world who understand human design. I don't obviously teach human design, anything like that, but I've integrated it into all of my programs now, so that when people are in there and they're interacting with each other, they actually understand why someone might say, that doesn't work for me. And like, because I mean, there was one point in 2021, I had 8 coaches at one time. And because I was trying to figure out, like, what is my way? What is my way of being successful? And so it actually allowed me to now be able to have all the tools for everyone.
Right.
But, I really learned, like, a lot of these ways are not for me. A lot of them, like, are not for manifestors, right?
Right.
Because energetically, we are not meant to be showing up overwhelmed, showing
Right.
up out of alignment just because we did that. Like, I've also learned, like, I cannot run a masterclass alone. I have a generator now who I work with in my program, and like, she, guides the calls for any master classes that we do, because for me to do something that's structured alone is just, it's too much, right?
Mm.
And so for yourself, like, what would you say with manifestors? Like, what is the best way for them to get visible?
Mm. The best way to get visible for a manifestor is to share, to inform, to share the thoughts, to share the ideas. One of my favorite ways has been Instagram stories.
Mm-hmm.
Instagram stories has been my favorite way to inform, like, what is happening, what I'm thinking, these new ideas drop in, or these thoughts, or maybe something even that's happening, with a client that I'm working with, or something like that. But anytime that you can use your voice is going to be really, really helpful, because with our closed and repelling auras, the invitation is what allows us in. So for any manifestor who's having a hard time with visibility, I invite you to look at, are you informing enough? Are you sharing enough? And now it's important because, like, there's a manifestor, a friend of mine. I also like attract a lot of manifestors and projectors. Maybe it's
Probably
like,
because you create content and they're like, she gets me.
right, right. Even so, a girlfriend who, she's one of my Reiki students and has become a friend, and we had a little, baby play date meetup on Friday, and I just learned that she was a manifestor. And she was saying about how much she just hates showing up on social media. She hates creating content, right? She like all of that stuff. Like, she can't handle doing, like, just does not like it, doesn't feel authentic. She doesn't like being in front of a screen, right? Things like that. So it's important for us to identify, like, with the aspects of our chart, where are you meant to share? What are your gifts? And really, when it comes down to visibility, are you using all of your gifts? Are you sharing all the things that you're supposed to, right? Because I can say all this, but this may not necessarily be right for another manifestor, right? Because it could be like the manifestor I spoke with last week, who's like, I'm not a social media person. That exhausts me. So for them, looking at what other ways, what are other aspects and gifts that they have that they can be sharing about, that is going to help drive it. Because when there is, again, it's not going to be natural for us to inform as manifestors. We do have to be conscious about it, but I will promise you it does get easier as you practice it. And what's really interesting is, Brittany, have you looked at your like the design view, like strictly the design view and strictly your personality view of your chart rather than just the quantum view?
I've looked at it. I haven't like dove into it. Like I've had other people pick things out. But not like, I mean, I'm just, obviously, like I said, I'm not a human design reader. So it's
Oh
always
yeah, just if you
interesting
stumbled
learning
upon
about
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I just stumbled upon it. It was really interesting. So if you go to geneticmatrix.com, you can look at your chart there, and they actually, there you can change the view. So the way that we're used to looking at it is quantum. That's the quantum view that we see. We see the combination of our conscious and non-conscious aspects. So you can view it so that you only see your conscious or you only see your unconscious, which I think is really, really cool. Of course, you could see it because of the colors, blah, blah, blah. But there's something to be said about looking at it, and it'll actually tell you. So for me, my conscious side, or my personality, I'm a self-projected projector.
I'm a
As a
self-projected projector.
Yeah. So I can relate a lot, right? So for me, but it still speaks to my need to talk, right? My need to talk
Mhm.
things out and share things. So sharing like to a friend, calling a friend, some of my best friends who even aren't in business, but I'll just share things that I'm excited about and talking about and thinking about and all of that stuff and how it really starts to come into fruition. Sharing and informing about, again, these thoughts and ideas, but especially to the people who are involved in whatever the outcome is of that thought and that idea. Does that make
Mhm.
sense?
And so when you say that you switch up the views, so you see yourself as a self-projected projector. So then is the other side the manifestor?
It is.
Okay.
It is. Yeah. And it's interesting because it made a
And
lot of sense.
that's you said is the conscious side is your self-projected projector.
Right.
And
Correct.
that is why we probably don't operate necessarily from our human design, is because
Mhm.
like you take that, then you throw in all the conditioning of everything else in life, and it's just like it's a clusterfuck.
Oh, clusterfuck is right. Exactly. So when I looked at that and I thought about that, I was like, okay, so on a conscious level, I need to wait for the invitation. On a conscious level, I need to feel successful. On a conscious level, my authority is to project, right? Whereas my design in my quantum, right? I mean, together I'm a manifestor. Like I'm not a projector, I'm a
Mhm.
manifestor, right? So on that level, really leaning into the fact that I'm not meant to wait for anything.
Mhm.
Don't wait until you know enough. Don't wait until you've already done it, right? Whereas a projector, as I've heard from other experts before, you're actually meant to create the program before,
Mhm.
not to say you can't talk about it or anything like that before, but like it's actually like you can build it and they will come.
Mhm.
For us as manifestors, we're actually meant to start talking about it once we've decided, like, all right, I've decided I'm going to do this mastermind or this program or whatever, to start talking about it before I actually do it.
Mhm.
That is right for manifestors.
Okay. And so I'll be honest, I'm a little confused. So with like, let's pull up a chart and then I can drop a link to a little video where people can see where we're going through this. And then we'll take a look at like how this shift happens. Cause I've actually never had someone talk about this before. So it'll be really interesting seeing how we can shift. And then I just want you to go over again, just so I clearly understand and everyone else understands how to navigate through the design manifestor side and then the conscious self-projected projector side. Um,
Mm-hmm. So
because
you want me to pull up the two views, the quantum view and the
yeah, so
our
just so
genetic
how we
matrix?
like, I'm curious as to like, okay, when it comes to business, especially like
Mm.
consciously, does that change the way that you sell, that you show up, anything like that? Or is it more important that we operate from that subconscious side when it comes to?
It's both. It's both.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really understanding that we have both of these parts. And this is where, regardless of what's conscious or unconscious, really what's important is that we are in alignment with our strategy and our authority.
Mm-hmm. Which would
Like,
be the manifestor side.
exactly, to inform, to initiate, and and then depending on where your inner authority is, right, listening to that aspect of it. And it's really interesting too, because as a manifestor, depending on what your authority is, can be a little contradictory of what your strategy is. So, for example, all right, we're meant to speak about things as they come through. Yet, somebody with an emotional authority or solar plexus authority needs to ride their emotional wave before they really know what they're doing, right? And for me, again, it's splenic. So for me, it just kind of comes out like really super quick. So Brittany, just to be clear, you want me to show you in genetic matrix what it looks like to see the quantum view and the personality view?
Yep.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Give me a second.
Yeah. Just because it's really interesting. So it's like, yes, operate from the manifestor side, but if you're a self-projected projector, how are we, like, where does that come in that we infuse that into? Is it our copy? Is it the way that we show up? Is it like, because I mean, like, I don't want to start confusing people and like going down a rabbit but like, I think it's really interesting because I haven't heard anyone talk about that before, where you can actually, like, where you actually have two. But it's interesting because we were just having a conversation yesterday with my colleague Katie, and we were saying, when it comes to the lines, what, like, sometimes you look at your lines and you actually have more lines on the one side. Like, so for me, for example, I'm a 2-4, but I have, when I count the ones, I have more ones in my chart than a 2 or a 4. And it's like, so, how did that happen? And so I think that's really, when we start to, like I said, dive into the chart, it's like the more and more questions come up.
Oh, yeah.
What if you made 2023 the year that you went all in on you? The year that you made the decision to take your business seriously and stop at nothing to make your dreams your reality. It's time to master yourself and create even more freedom in your business and life by harnessing the power of human design energetics in business. Join Katie Carlson and I on the journey as together we help you create even more abundance, time, magic, and money. Freedom in your energy, freedom in your offers, freedom in your sales, freedom in your business. You may be someone who is just starting out and you are looking to do things the right way from the start as you launch your new program or offer. Or maybe you've been at it a while and you know what you have to offer would completely change someone's life, but you can't seem to find those ready-to-buy clients that everyone speaks about. The answer is simple. No one has met you where you are at, and you need someone to help you put all the pieces together in a way that brings you success. The Freedom Program is all about you creating a solid foundation for your business. When you go through our process, you will be building an audience of aligned buyers who cannot wait to buy your next thing. You've been sold before on the dream of financial success, but you feel you haven't had any true support to go through the finish line. And trust me, we get it. We are here to support you and hold your hand through the finish line, creating your offers, designing your signature system, align your energy type, profile, and design, and create consistency in your business that grows your income. We are here to help you create the freedom you dream of with even more abundance, time, magic, and money that you deserve. To join us on the journey to freedom, head to the link in the description to learn more.
But just from my personal experience, like, this is how it helped me in my visibility in my business and just myself as a person, really understanding like who I am and how I'm perceiving everything else. So this is the quantum view. This is my chart. This is the quantum view. So this is, what we're typically used to looking at. Then if you go to the top, this drop-down menu, you can go to personality and design. So this is where we would differentiate. So if we look at what I was saying was my personality, which is my conscious side, here it is, self-projected projector. So
Okay.
that's where it gets like that information from.
Mm-hmm.
And then my design side is where I'm the splenic manifestor.
Okay. And so that's the one that decides what we are, like we said.
So the quantum view is really what decides, because we are both a combination of our conscious and non-conscious aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of bringing awareness to our non-conscious aspects and understanding where we've been conditioned, right? In order
So
to
the
really,
conscious side is where our conditioning is that we have to navigate through in order to really own ourselves in that subconscious side.
it's not so much that that's where we've been conditioned. For my, this is just my interpretation. It's more so that these are our qualities that we can see very clearly.
Okay. Got it.
Whereas our non-conscious are the ones that, those are the things that other people can see more easily in us that we cannot so easily see in ourselves.
Okay.
So like when I'm talking with people about their charts and we're looking at like certain aspects, there will be things that they're like, oh yeah, that really resonates. More often than not, it's because that's a conscious aspect. So
Mhm.
it's really, to me, I think there's actually, first of all, there's power in looking at all of it, right? We never want to look at one part, right? It's not like we don't want to spot reduce, just do crunches at the gym to get a tighter abs, right? It's a whole experience. But
Mhm.
I think where we can really find the hidden gems in our gifts is where we look, when we do look at our non-conscious aspects and allow ourselves the opportunity to see those parts of ourselves and to witness those parts of ourselves and to give space for those parts to share and to express. So from a visibility perspective, obviously messaging is what's really, really important, right? What you're sharing. Now, I am not an expert on this, especially not off the top of my head, but and this, I'm sure this is going to come up when you do your episode on the different centers and
Mhm.
did I make that up? Are you doing that, or am I confusing it with something else?
Oh yeah, we're doing all the
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
We're doing
all of
all
it,
the
all of it,
things.
right. So if I look at my design view again, oh, so basically our throat and the different channels of our throat are what help us understand what we're meant to share, like what we're meant to talk about and that sort of thing. So for me, these are two unconscious aspects. So it would be really helpful for me to look at these two gates, understand what they are, and make sure that I'm speaking to those parts, right? So this one in particular is really powerful. So this is the money line. So
Mhm.
I'm one of those lucky people apparently who have the money line in my chart, which means that it's kind of like a queen energy of like having the resources and making sure everybody has enough.
Mhm.
That's really important in my chart, but it's non-conscious. So I really have to understand and embody that I do have this within me and that it is important for me to share about these things and is important to me to just spread these resources, which is actually very in alignment with my passion and what I love to do, which is I love learning about shit like human design and Reiki and things like that and sharing it with the masses. Because once I find something like this is helpful and I love it, I can't stop talking about it. I talk about it to everyone, and I've been like this my whole life. I did
Mhm.
this when I got into essential oils, when I started doing EFT tapping, it's like I'm an expert in nothing, right? But I know a whole lot of different things. Well, I would say Reiki. That is one aspect that I definitely do weave into every single thing that I do because it's such a universal and easily applicable to everything. That's why I
Mhm.
was like, oh my God, I have to create a program for Reiki and motherhood. I have to create a program for Reiki and business, not using those as practitioners, but rather just using that as a tool, like you are with human design in your business
Mhm.
program, right? To amplify really getting into alignment with your purpose.
Mhm.
So, does that help answer
Yeah,
a
and
little
then
bit?
just let's
Okay.
take a look one more time at the
Yeah,
personality side.
sure.
Okay. And then with this, this is the side that you said we're showing up to the world. Explain this
On a
again.
more conscious
I
level.
I'm trying. I'm trying. So on a conscious level. So tell me go down the rabbit hole a little bit, like partway down. Let's meet Bugs Bunny there. What, like, how would you, like, what, like, when you say conscious, what do you mean by that? Because so for me, my understanding is with the subconscious, it's that stuff that we, like you said, we want to learn about. Like, it's behind the scenes that we are like, I love this shit so much. And then it's like you said, we're not necessarily experts in it. It's not like what we're showing up as. Like for me, like, I mean, I have my like Reiki level 2. I love energy. I love to learn about energy and all the things energy, but I do trust that there is a lot of people out there who know a shit ton more about energy than I do. So I love to infuse it into my programs. However, and this is going to sound egotistical and cocky, but I do believe that my program, when it comes to launches and the logic side of things, I do believe that it's the best program out there. So it's interesting as to what would come up from that conscious side as to if that's actually, in alignment. And that's why I have like that confidence when it comes to that. Whereas that subconscious, it's like, we question, like, do I know enough? I love this stuff, but do I know enough? And so is that kind of what you're meaning here when it comes to subconscious, conscious side, or am I like going in the wrong direction again?
So I think the best way that I could describe it, I mean, sort of, I think some aspects of what you're saying, but the way that I think could explain it that would maybe simplify, so kind of like pulling back a little bit from how we talked about it and looking at it through this lens instead, is you are who you are, right? There are parts of you, you have some gifts that you don't easily see in yourself, right? Like some people might say like, oh, like you're really good at helping people with their problems or whatever, but you might think like, oh, really? Like I do that? Like, are you sure? Like, are you serious? So like that gift that others can see in you might be your subconscious gift, right? They may be your non-conscious gift that you don't easily see in yourself. Whereas you might say like you said, like you're, like you have a great launch program. It's the best out there. So those might be, we likely could be, right, the conscious aspects that you very easily see as your gifts and as your strengths. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Yeah. And so for you, when it comes to your conscious side and when it comes to the self-projected projector side, how do you resonate with this?
So to me, this makes a lot of sense. Only from the perspective of I never really was very connected to my splenic center until I really started to understand my intuition and my inner guides and my guidance, right? And that sort of thing. So for me, on a conscious level, before I really started deconditioning even before human design, right? Like my deconditioning process started when I learned Reiki and peeled back all those layers and discovered all the traumas and this and that, right, that were holding me back from really playing big and were holding me back from really stepping into my authenticity. And this aligns to that because this is saying that, again, I'm that like self-projected, right, projector of, and I think self-projected, right, that's because it's coming from the ego center, right? Yeah. So, coming from that, like, that's what I would think, but really my authority is splenic. So it's not necessarily meant, like, I'm not meant to make decisions just based on my passion, like my direction in life or what, how I feel about my direction in life, but rather from that splenic center, that like inner knowing, that little whisper of intuition.
Yeah. And I think for that, it's, that this is like possibly like, because I'm thinking here, it's like for people to really understand that, like, you have both these sides. And in order to really be successful, you need to integrate both. Like you are a whole. And so you could be operating from the conscious side, the personality side, but, you're wondering, why isn't this shit working? Right? It's like, I feel so like in it. Like, I know I'm good at this. but why isn't it working? Why energetically am I not attracting people to me? And it's like, because you're operating from the conscious side. And in order to become that energetic match, to be able to, like you said, be in that strategy, to be in alignment, you need both. You need to bring in the energetic side of, yes, on a self-projected projector side, you're waiting for an invitation, or it's like that success and you're, these things, but it's like, actually the reason that you're maybe struggling with like the inner voice of like, this shit's not working, you're not enough. It's because you're not in alignment with the subconscious side. And so when we can really bring those two together, like, and I mean, that's a must, right? You are whole. And so bringing in both those sides, I think is important. And like, I mean, it comes back to, that's why it's so important to have someone decipher and read your chart, is because they will see things about you that you do not see about yourself.
Exactly. I think that's so huge. And also to understand that these are parts of us. And I think that it's important, because just because I am a manifestor doesn't mean I don't have these other maybe projector-like qualities within my chart that are important in the way that I operate, right? That might come up as I feel. But again, I am a manifestor, right? And feeling at peace. So I don't even think we talked about these yet, right? Our signature. Do you want me to stop sharing?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just so I could see your whole face. So, so our themes as manifestors, right? Our self theme and our not self theme. As a manifestor, it is peace.
Mm-hmm.
And our not self theme is anger. So when we are in alignment, when we are really living our purpose and living in alignment, we are feeling at peace. So it's really important when we're in our businesses to think about what makes you feel angry. Like I have a manifestor client. She, like, sometimes like somebody will ask something of her, but like maybe ask to do it at a cheaper way, or asking for this or asking for that, or asking things of her, and she gets pissed, like really, really angry, And so recognizing that and looking that as a signpost of wondering like what is out of alignment here for me that is creating this anger. And again, versus the projector side of that need to be successful, or not need to be successful, but you're meant to feel successful. You're here to feel successful. Like that's it. Success is different than peace. Right? Being at peace, I don't need to be successful to be at peace, right? Being at peace is really a feeling for me of freedom.
Yeah.
And anybody could maybe use that same term for whatever their thing is, but that's what it is to me.
Mm-hmm. And one of the things that's coming through for me right now as like that client kind of thing, is that her getting so frustrated or angry, I guess hers is angry, and feeling that anger. Well, if say she's a projector and she's operating from that place of wanting to feel successful, possibly, her idea of success, well, as long as I'm getting clients, like that makes me feel successful. But now I'm fucking angry because I'm letting these people like, cut me down, like, bring me down to like prices that like is out of alignment. And so we're operating from that conscious side of being like, okay, like I'll negotiate with them. But our subconscious is now like blaring, angry. And the thing with that is like, now what you've done is you're actually attracting the wrong people because you're out of alignment. And so being able to say, no, you are not my aligned buyer. You are not the person for me. And, if you want deals and all that kind of stuff, go get it somewhere else.
Yes. Oh my God, for sure. And they say typically for manifestors, our conditioning will usually result in two ways: either turning into a people pleaser or a complete rebel and complete like, fuck you. Like, I'm just going to do this my way. I don't give a shit, So, and neither are great places to be, right? And we may swing back and forth between either. So we have to, and this could be for everybody, of course, right? But we need to learn and understand our boundaries, but then also, again, informing about what those boundaries are and doing it from a really grounded place and from a really um words are just escaping me today. I'm telling you, this eclipse is like really messing me up. But yeah, so just, from a really confident place, that's the word that I'm looking
Mhm.
for. So coming from that place of confidence is really,
Mhm.
really important.
And so with a manifestor, when it comes to the connection side of things, what is the best way for a manifestor to connect with people? Because I know some of the designs, it's important for a projector, for example, it's important for me to be going in when someone comments and like they're inviting me to have that conversation with me because now they've commented on my post, whatever it is. I can't remember which design it is. I think it's reflectors where important for them to ask questions. Is it not? I think the reflectors, it's important for them to ask questions. So having that conversation within their content of like someone like them saying something, someone, responding on their post, and then them having that conversation of asking questions and learning more about the person. So with a manifestor, what is their best way to build a connection with their audience through that? What do you find works for you?
I would say two things. I would say one, again, and I know I sound like a broken record, but inform.
We need to hear
Like
things multiple times.
we sure do, right? 12 to 15 or something, right? So, but yes, we really need to inform. And by doing that is literally just sharing the thought, sharing what's happening, because that is what's opening up your field and allowing others to come in. And B, I would say, same as reflector, creating something for people to respond to, create something that does invite someone in to answer. But I will say, as a manifestor, we're not necessarily meant, again, to respond all the time. So I do find I need to be very intentional about interacting with other people on social media when it comes to building relationships
Mhm.
and building those connections with others. And one thing that's been really helpful for me, and this could probably be helpful, really good advice for other types as well, is looking at the whole process of just building friendships and building relationships and getting to know others and not looking at them just as like a client or
A dollar
potential
sign.
client. Exactly. But really just using it as like a fun way to like get to know each other and again, like share. But as a manifestor, you have a closed aura. So you do need to invite people in order for them to do that. And also, it's
You're
really
lucky.
important.
Like you
Mm,
get to initiate the invitations. You get to inform people. And I think that's why for you, the story side of Instagram is
mm.
probably really beneficial for you is because you don't need to respond to a whole bunch of like questions or comments or anything like that. Like it's it's easy for you to show up that way. Let me give you the information and then, initiating that like this is the next step for me to continue to inform you.
Exactly. And authentic, right?
Mhm.
And authentic, especially when considering my authority being splenic. Like when I post things to my stories, it is so in the moment.
Mhm.
It is so like, this is just what's happening here. And even I'll share this yesterday. I was in my office here and I was trying to get a post out about my one-on-one services, my packages. And I had some content that I was going to post. I was going to make a reel. And I don't know if you spend a lot of time on Instagram. I know you spend a lot of time on Facebook, but like on
Mhm.
Instagram, when I like to do reels. I enjoy showing up. Like I really, really do enjoy. And when I don't, I don't. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Like when I don't force it. I don't force myself, which is why it is really helpful and important for us to have generators and manifesting generators and stuff to help. Like my VA is a manifesting generator. God bless her. And my intern is a projector. Working with other types, that could be a whole episode. I got stories for that. But so anyway, so yesterday I was in my office, I was making this reel and I knew what I wanted to post about. I just needed something, I needed like a trending audio or whatever. So I'm searching through reels just for some inspiration. And I find this one song and I'm like, all right, this is cool. I'll put like these 4 slides and it'll be timed like this or whatever. And I'm like, this music makes me want to dance. So I just set my tripod up and I recorded this like ridiculous video of me and like threw my sunglasses across the room and I'm just like being crazy me or whatever. and it wasn't like a trending audio or anything. And I got like, there was like 70 something likes on it last night before I even like turned my phone off, or whatever. And it was just really funny. And everybody's laughing and like three people, like a bunch of people shared it to their stories, like, because it's just fun and it was authentic energy. And I think that is the most important thing, regardless of what our type is or anything else, that it really comes from that place, right, of the heart. And it is also helpful because we do know that strategy and consistency and all of those things are important. This is why none of us are meant to do any of this alone. So for any manifestor who's listening to this, it'll be like, how do I show up? Like, I know that this is a part of the puzzle. Being visible is literally so important, right? I mean, we can spend all the hours you want, manifest, visualizing your clients and sending up your lighthouse light and blah, 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 all those things that we do, right? You and I do, like, it's important. But if you don't take any fucking action on it, if you don't actually do anything after that, how are they supposed to know? If like it's the equivalent of me sitting in my office all day with my computer off, my phone off, and my door closed. How is any with no sign on the door? How is anybody supposed to find me, right?
And I think that's a huge thing is, so many of us with our designs, like because we're doing things that light us up, we've got to that place, right? We're doing the things that light us up, that because maybe showing up on social media doesn't light us up, we get caught behind the doing of creating. And then all of a sudden we want to go launch something and nobody knows who the fuck you are. No, you don't have an audience and you're wondering why it's failing. Nobody knows who you are. Like nobody's
Or you talked about it once, or you wrote a single post about it.
Yeah. Right. And then it's like, oh, nobody wants to buy it. And I always say to my clients, I'm like, nobody fucking saw you. Yep. And I'll laugh and I'll be like, I didn't see it. Nobody saw it. And it's not that I'm like, special and unique, but I mean, all of us are, but it's like really allowing ourselves to like, you need to continue to show up. You need those people to know that you're not going anywhere. You're not to like, a flash in the pan and like, this isn't working. Like, goodbye. I'm going to hang out over here. And I remember when I first started my business and I had chosen niche, I don't remember what it was. But because I was talking about it so much, all of a sudden it's like, I'm seeing all these other people on my feed do this. And I'm like, oh, okay, I'm not enough because everybody's doing this. Well, no, it's an algorithm because of what you're talking about. That's why you're seeing the other people. And that's why it's so important for us to integrate our design into everything that we create, because that's going to expand your algorithm. So the example I like to give to people is like, it's important for you to show the personal side of things, the personal life. How am I embodying this in my personal life? Not just showing up behind a screen, acting like I know everything, but how am I actually showing up in a way of being able to navigate through this? Like for me, I know Thursday, I think it's Thursday next week, when we're doing our masterclass, or it might be this week. I think it's both. My boyfriend is at work. He's just going back to work. I was fortunate that because I have a business, he was able to be off for 9 months and he's just starting to go back to work. And with that, I know that he's working on Thursday. Well, my daughter is going to be there with us while we're going live doing the masterclass. And we had a conversation about it. And it's like, that's real and authentic. That's the people who it's like the moms who think that it's not okay. Like I have to go find someone to like, I have to go put my kid away in a closet and, or my dog or whatever. And for me, I think that's one of the things I love most about doing a podcast as well, is like, I used to think that it needed to be perfect. I used to kick my family completely out of the house like while I was recording episodes. And I'm like, I want people to be able to see that entrepreneurship, like being a coach, like not anyone can do it, but like you can do it and you don't need to put yourself in a box, because if you put yourself in a box, you're just going back to that 9-to-5 lifestyle that you are trying to escape.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. If you desire it, it's for you. Right? There is no perfect type to be a coach. There is no perfect type to be a healer. There's no perfect type to be a project manager, right? If you desire it, it is for you. The question is, do you desire it, or have you been conditioned to think that that's what you should be doing?
Mm-hmm. And so what would you say for manifestors is, and I know you're going to say inform, but beyond that, what is their best way for them to sell? And if in regards to maybe inform, what, what is their best way to do that? Maybe when like they're writing their copy or whatever, like, is it that it's important for them to like, and as manifestors, obviously, it's important for you to just show up and start informing even when you don't have the sales page, but is it important for them to like inform of the details? Like, what would you say is the best way that you've, like navigated through, and maybe your clients as manifestors, like what has really worked for them to sell?
So any of this, again, is really going to be using the gifts, right? So in terms of like, I would say like depending on like, again, looking at your throat centers, which throat centers, which throat gates are activated, which throat channels are activated in your chart. And what do those tell you? What are those things that you meant to share? Because really, like when we think about abundance, selling is abundance, right? Like making money, it's abundance. One form of abundance. How you become abundant is literally just living your design.
Mm-hmm.
So just by doing that alone, just by making sure that your gifts is infused in your copy
Mm-hmm.
and sharing all of those details, right? And giving the chance for people to ask questions, to answer yes or no. I find FAQs to be very helpful,
Mm-hmm.
sharing certain things like, oh, these are what people are normally asking. Like, these are the answers to those questions. And again, I think that a lot of this can really be true for a lot of the different types. So I'm having a hard time really landing on whether or not there is one strategy or one thing that is unique to manifestors versus any other type. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Or do you feel from your experience that projectors, like there's one way that they should, or that they could sell better versus another type?
I think I'm trying to think here and remember. I do have it on my computer here somewhere. Yeah, so inform the people who are impacted,
Mhm.
initiate the things you want to do. It's very important that you surrender to waiting. It's like you are meant to, initiate and inform, but when you ask the universe for something to respond to, like you're asking the universe
Mm.
to respond to you. And then you have to wait. Like, I think for so many of us, so for so many of our designs, we are so guilty of trying to control it. Um, Again, like, and you've mentioned this, and so for you to even know this, shorter launches would be a good idea. Like a week. And it says maybe add a week so we can catch up with you. But shorter programs where you can have the freedom, like you
That is
said.
aligned.
Yeah.
Very, very, very aligned.
Yeah, shorter programs, or programs where you have the freedom to do other things that you want to be doing. A great idea, more flexible. Um, the this way, when you all of a sudden decide you want to do something else, you can. So important for you not to get bogged down with, oh, well, everybody else is doing these year-long masterminds. Like that might
Mhm.
not be for you. I know for myself, very like I love to like, I mean, because like, you get these ideas and these intuitive hits, and it's like, I want to talk about this now. And while I was doing this mastermind, I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, and so,
Yes.
really allowing myself to do shorter containers or, do pop-up things. I love to do pop-up, like I have an idea, but that's why I think it's so important for all of us to really be focusing on getting visible. Because when you do have these spur of the moment ideas, your audience is already primed, prepped, ready for it. They know who you are, they know what you do, they know the stuff that you're interested in. And so when all of a sudden you get this intuitive hit of like, oh, I want to do this program based on Reiki. Well, if you're already talking about Reiki in your content, they'll be ready for it, right? They'll be like,
Yes.
oh, this makes sense. It says like to start small. Again, like I said, to respond or, waiting, like getting others to respond to you because you're informing. And don't feel you have to limit yourself to one thing. So I think those are kind of some of the big ones that.
Oh, I love that. Those all resonated hardcore. And it's actually really funny. I was on a call earlier with another colleague of mine who's also a, entrepreneur, and she's a manifestor. And we were chatting because she just finished a summit that she did. She did it in collaboration with somebody else, and I was a part of her summit, and it was incredibly successful. They did an amazing job, a really, really amazing job. And I was asking her how she's doing, how she's feeling since then, and this and that. We were talking about it, and she was like, honestly, it was so amazing to have something so quick and make a bunch of money, like really quick. Like it was just so fast, and now like on to the next. And she was saying, and we had that conversation. She said, build it up and burn it down. I said, light it up and then pass the torch, right? Like that really, so that really resonates a lot. And honestly, on a personal level right now, as you're saying this, because I've been going back and forth right now, the mastermind I'm running is 6 months. And if I'm being completely honest, I'm kind of over it right now. Like, I mean, I love my group, and not anything against like the container, like all that's going really well. But I think my attention span is just so short. And I am already thinking about the next thing I want to build and do, and all these other things that I'm doing. So what I am actually, how I see myself continuing, and I will share, I have a course that I just launched, which has actually happened in response to the summit that my friend had done. It's called Activate Your Inner Healer, and it's a 4-week course. It's completely self-paced and online, and it's really all about giving people the tools to understand their own energy, their field, their chakras, and how to tap in and connect with their own source energy, how to ground themselves, like energetics 101, right? Like energy healing 101 on how to do that for yourself. And that is my foundational course. So that's great for my clients before they become clients, because they get to learn a little bit more, like that sort of thing. It leads into my Reiki trainings that I do. It's like perfect. And then I had another concept of creating, and this has been an idea for a while, and it is transcending now into the material world, where it's a membership program where I have all of my favorite tools within this membership, where it's just like, real quick, here's how you do tapping. Here's how you can use acupressure points. Here's how you can use essential oils. Here's how you, like all of these little things.
Like you mean inform?
Exactly. Inform. Yeah. Giving people that, it's like really giving them the toolbox to follow along with whatever is really feeling right for them in the moment. Something that covers mind, body, and spirit, because different things are going to help with different areas, and they're all important, right? That sort of thing. So that is going to be just an ongoing subscription where I can show up when I feel like it, with little pop-up things that people in that community get. So it's helping me financially and all of that stuff. And then I was telling her, and this I just feel like is so in alignment with everything that you just said. I think instead of doing another 6-month mastermind or year-long program, something like that, shorter, maybe like 6 weeks or 3-month, smaller, more focused, more, isolated thing on like one thing that I feel really passionate about doing. One thing go ahead.
And sometimes like those longer masterminds are good for the sake of, like, I have like the Make Life Your Bitch one, and I'll say to people like, this is the space where like, there is no direction with this, like, because all those clients get all of my programs. And because of that, it's like, that's where your structure is. Make Life Your Bitch is all about all the other things that are coming through for me. It's like, I'm getting this download right now, and I'm going to share it with you. I'm going to talk about the energetics. We're going to talk about what lights you up. And it's like really that space, when we allow yourselves, like, so even for you, if you do have a long one, allow yourself to like be a free spirit within you can even have a long container, as long as you're allowing yourself that free spirit, to shine through, and people being in there because they really like you, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's really what it's about. That, like, it's funny, the intake form for this mastermind, like that was literally why people joined it, which is why it's so important to be visible and to share yourself, right? Because how are they going to know they like you if you don't tell anybody anything about yourself?
Yeah, it's really
so important.
It's really building that relationship. So you've shared, how we can work with you in that. We'll definitely make sure that we drop your handles in here. Do you want to just like quickly tell everyone like where you are on Facebook, how to find you, Instagram, anything like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Instagram is where I show up the most. That's where I have the most fun. That's where I really connect with my community. So it's Integrative Wellness Journeys. And if you go to integrativewellnessjourneys.com, that's my website. It'll redirect you to Alyssa and I coaching because I just redid my website this year. And I needed something that embodied all of the different things that I do. And so those are the best places to connect. I am also on Facebook, although these days I tend to just operate more under my personal profile, Alyssa Knapp. So you're welcome to follow me and friend me there if you want to connect. And yeah, like I mentioned, that Activate Your Inner Healer program, that's there. That's just a great entryway to working with me because you do get so many tools and stuff. I do one-on-one work and then really whatever else is feeling alive in the moment. So who knows? By the time this episode launches, well, actually, no, it will be tomorrow. So nothing too much hopefully will change by then. But
and then with that being said, what is there any last thing that, piece of advice or information that you would give to the manifestors that maybe we've missed or that we didn't cover?
One thing that I did not touch on enough that is the most important thing is rest. I think I'd started talking about this before and we got on a side tangent, but manifestors go through cycles of urges and rest. Remember that there's a difference between rest and burnout. So listening to your body's signs and cues and giving it that time to rest is actually giving yourself enough energy to move through the next urge. So think of your rest cycles as productive because resting is the most productive thing that you can do as a manifestor when you're not in an urge. And trust your urges. Trust your urges. This is so hard. Again, I just talked about this with my other manifestor friend. It was like so perfect that we had a call today when I was doing this episode. It was so aligned. And we were talking about how sometimes you get the urge to do this thing. Like she had this urge to create this podcast, but it's not really happening until next month. But everything is done up until because she worked and then she put it down when she needed to. And now it's actually ready and everything else is right. The course that I was just talking about, I actually created like 3 years ago when I signed up for one of my first big masterminds. It was like a course creating mastermind and it just wasn't right. But now when the time was right, I already had all that content to pull on. So whatever it is, don't question it. Don't think, do I know enough to do this? Don't think, am I wasting my time and my energy? Because somebody needs it. It may not even be you, to be honest with you. It may not. But if it's coming through you from that aligned place, which is why knowing your energy, which is why connecting with yourself and your authority, your higher self, right? That is really the most important thing that you can do as a manifestor. And also, sorry, but you're not for everyone.
None of us are for everyone.
None of us are for everyone. Right. So you're going to bump into some people, your aura is going to bump into some people and they're going to be like, fuck this bitch. I don't like that. Right. That's okay. That is really, really okay. But when you do share, you give the opportunity for those who are going to be really lit up by everything that you're doing and saying, and really want to get on board with whatever it is that you're doing, just because they like you, just because you're awesome. So just be you.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And for everyone out there listening, make sure you go out there and you make life your bitch. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Make Life Your Bitch podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please share it with your bestie. And if you haven't already, subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player. If you have any questions, feedback, or compliments that you want to throw like confetti, you can reach me directly at podcast@makelifeyourbitch.co. Thanks for listening.